Welcome to this episode of Created to Succeed. Today I'm being joined by James Arthur Ray. James Arthur Ray is a New York Times best-selling author, known globally for his mind-empowering events. James Arthur Ray, good to finally have you here.
It's great to be here, Bert. Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you.
We've talked on blogs and
Facebook
podcasts
and podcasts and on the phone and stuff. So yeah, it's good to finally put the face to the voice. And you have a very distinctive voice. Is that an accent from somewhere?
I bought that about 10 years ago. Yeah, for more than $10.
At voice.com.
Voice.com,
Yeah, I like that. Where are you from?
I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
So, some people still hear a
little bit of a twang. That's what it was.
I can put it back on if you want me to. But I kind of got past most of that. But literally, I look at really old videos and I've got it big time.
Yeah. It's interesting. I worked on trying to get rid of my accent for years, and then, and I did. It's one of those things that I wish in some ways I did not do, because I did it to fit in. And maybe we'll talk about that more. Because when I was growing up, being an immigrant or being Hispanic made things just a little bit more difficult, right? I mean, not that I've ever felt true racism, maybe a little pushback, but in general, that was one of my motivators to get rid of my accent.
Well, as bad as sometimes it still is with racism and those types of things, bigotry, et cetera, it still exists, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
Absolutely.
It's way better. I mean, we've really accelerated and improved over my lifetime.
Yeah. No, I think it is.
And yours as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So not perfect by any means, but I think we are making steady progress, moving forward. One of the things that I've been dying to ask you is, how did you get started? How did James Ray go from the corporate world? I think at one time you were working for AT&T, you were their trainer or leader.
AT&T School of Business.
Okay, so you went from that and you decided to, I'm going to open up my own business, hang my own shingle. Talk about that transition.
Yeah, I was a C-suite consultant at AT&T School of Business, so I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to them because they really taught me my business chops, and what I was responsible for at that time was leadership, performance, team building, communication, all those things with C-suite executives and their teams. So it was a tremendous education because that wasn't my formal education. In end of 91 towards 92, they offered, we were going through this tremendous, if you remember, downsizing and reorganization in the whole AT&T system.
Right.
And they offered an early out, and I decided to take it because I was working as a consultant within the organization, and I thought, hey, I'm just going to continue to do this. And I took the early out, and originally they would pay for your education, continued education. I'm 5 hours short of a behavioral sciences degree, and I used to be really hung up about that,
right,
because most of my peers had a degree. And I'm not so hung up about it anymore, but I thought, well, I'll go back and finish. And they would pay for your health insurance and they give you a 5-year window where you could come back.
Wow.
So I'm like, wow, there's no lose here, only a win. Well, come to find out, I landed 2 contracts immediately with subsidiaries of AT&T, and in the fine print, it said, while you're on this 5-year leave, you can't work with any part of AT&T or its subsidiaries. So I had a real big decision to make. And in 92, I finally decided, I asked myself some real tough questions. Do you really want to pursue your own business, your own life, your own direction? Yes. Right. Do you really want to come back? No, not really. So then, step up, build some courage, take the step, take the leap. So I actually went in and turned in, I reneged on the leave, and I turned in my resignation. My boss was shocked. My family was shocked. My mom, beloved mother, was like, oh my God, are you sure,
right,
son? And I haven't looked back since. So that was in 92, and my first 3 years, I was a business consultant working with a myriad of corporations on primarily culture change, going in and doing diagnostics around the core level values, beliefs, assumptions of each team member, and recognizing that organizations don't perform, people perform.
Right.
Right? So if you look at organizational behavior, what you really need to look at is personal behavior, because it's the amalgamation or the collective of the personal behavior that creates the organization. And still to this day, I don't believe that a lot of leaders do that, unfortunately.
No, and I think that there's probably not, I don't know, time for that. You're certainly not rewarded for doing that. You are if you can show, hey, here, I spent X amount of time and energy and money, and we got the right people in, got rid of some bad people, or people that weren't happy or whatever. We've done some training, and here's the ROI on that. You might get a pat on the back, but I think depending on the size of the company, yeah, there's no time for that.
Well, really interesting, and it takes a broader leadership perspective to get this. But really interesting study on Wall Street, 15-year study, looked at organizations that paid attention to what they called the interiors of the people in the business. So my personal values, beliefs, assumptions, my personal desires, my personal purpose, versus companies that just paid attention to exteriors, meaning results, ROI, activities, skills, strategies. And what they found, 15-year study, is that the corporations that paid attention to exteriors, by and large, increased about 150% over 15 years. But the ones that paid attention to interiors increased over 1,500%.
Interesting.
So what we now know is that happy, fulfilled people have less turnover, they're more productive, they're more fulfilled in what they're doing, and that does affect ROI.
Sure.
But unfortunately, many times we have short-sighted vision on that.
And I think that's exactly it. We have that short-sighted vision. You look at somebody like Blockbuster, who was this massive leader, 4,000 or 5,000 stores globally, and they had that short-sighted vision. In 10 years, I don't know if you know the story, but they had a chance to do business with Netflix. Netflix came to them not once, not twice, but 3 times. Each time, Blockbuster said, "No, we're huge. You can't compete with us." 10 years later, they're gone. But I want to go back to this interior that you're talking about. Do a lot of people refer to these things as soft skills?
They do.
Yeah.
And what I would submit is that, inarguably, in my experience, is that the soft skills are the hard skills.
Yeah.
Because your psychology always drives your strategy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Said a simpler way, the way you think, feel, and act or the way you think and feel is always going to determine how you act. And so what we tend to do, I look at 5 dimensions, what I call the 5 dimensions of leadership and ultimate performance.
Okay.
And one of those dimensions is strategies. I'm not saying strategies aren't important. Of course they are. Sales skills, investments, ROI, systems, structures, all those things are important. That's what the old quality movement was about. And I was back in the day when that was really big.
Right.
ISO 9000, all those things, if you ever heard of them.
Sure.
But that's only 1/5 the equation. You've also got the interior things like philosophy, psychology, physiology, community. I mean, there's tons of research, Birch, out there from Harvard University by Christakis and Fowler that says the community, what we'd call the culture in a business, is the driver of not only your impact in the world, but also your influence and your income is driven by your community. And so what I now know and what I tell those that I work with is that your environment is more important than your heredity. At this point in the game.
Sure.
The environment you're in, the community, the culture that you surround yourself with, is going to be way more important than your heredity is. So we got to look at all those things, and it's those interior things. The psychology is the interior of the individual, whereas the community is the interior of the collective individuals within an organization. So, and this is applicable, by the way, to an individual as well. It's not just a business model. Right.
What's interesting listening to you there is there are some leaders, both good and bad, that have been able to transfer their psychology to their followers, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a detrimental way. I think of recently Chavez when he took over Venezuela. Not to make this about politics, but I was impressed by his ability to transfer his way of thinking, his psychology, some of the things that he valued to his followers. And, I just thought that was amazing that in this day and age, in this modern time, that could still happen like that.
Yeah, well, if you check history, it's always happened like that. And look at Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, he was brilliant at transferring his psychology, his inspiration. He didn't know anything about programming.
No, he did.
But he had the wisdom to surround himself with the Wozniaks and those
Right.
who did. But you look at a Martin Luther King, or you look at a JFK, or you look at a Mother Teresa, or a Mahatma Gandhi, or name the names. I
Right.
mean, it's the individuals who have a degree of self-awareness, key term, and are able to be themselves, hopefully allow others to be themselves as well, and to inspire and bring forth greatness from within.
And I think that's what separates, I want to say, the great leaders, from maybe the mediocre leaders, right? Being able to be transparent. Hey, this is who I am. This is my good, my bad, and my ugly. Because we all have good, bad, and ugly, right? And then allowing your team to be the same. Tony Hesh, or Tony Hsieh, Tony Hsieh from Zappos. His culture there made that company this behemoth, right? Because he allowed everybody to have fun. It was part of the culture. And I can't remember where I read this, that culture will always trump anything else you're doing in that company. Culture will trump strategy. Culture will trump marketing, because a bad culture is going to kill that company. A good culture is going to help it thrive, and that's what you saw in Zappos.
Yeah, it's true. And for the solopreneur who's watching today,
Right.
or the entrepreneur with a small organization, it's the same is true for the individual attempting to lead their own life. Because when I talk about leadership, I'm talking about both life and business.
Right.
Because my contention is that we need leaders in this world. I don't personally believe there's ever been a time where we had a larger cry for true leadership. And I'm defining that in maybe a different way, but it's leading my life powerfully first, because I don't believe you can powerfully lead others until you can powerfully lead yourself.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. You can't give what you don't have.
Right.
And so for Tony Hsieh, for instance, your example, I've never met him.
I haven't either.
Actually, one of my former teams, I sent them over to kind of do
The tour.
yeah, and to kind of figure out, when we were looking at our company and our culture, what they were doing that we could maybe adopt. But I'm going to bet dollars to donuts that Tony Hsieh had to have those things first,
Yeah.
before he could develop that within the culture or the community that he was a part of and
Right.
a leader of.
Right. No, I thought he did a great job. All right, so I want to talk about, I think you refer to them as proclamations or declarations, something like that.
Proclamations.
Proclamations. I refer to them as affirmations. People say they don't work. I'm a big believer that we're constantly, to use your term, proclamating to ourselves or affirming to ourselves. I'm always running late. That's an affirmation that people say, and guess what? They're always running late. People have this constant, chronic conversation in their head. And so I want you to talk about proclamations, how they affect us, how we can maybe reprogram them.
I'd love to, and let me kind of do some defining first.
Okay.
Because first of all, if you look at words are power,
Yes.
that's a fact.
You're right.
And that's even a fact in physics now, which we could go there, and it's a little more technical. But words are power. In the esoteric traditions, they say that words create walls or structures within which our world is made. And so anytime I hear, when I'm communicating, teaching communication, or working one-on-one, or interviewing, or whatever, I know that the words that come out of someone's mouth are not mere utterances. They're not just noise.
Right.
First of all, science tells us they're vibratory. Everything in this universe has a frequency or a vibration, right? And secondly, they're an external expression of an internal state of being. follow that?
Yes.
Every word is uttered on purpose. Now, it may be uttered unconsciously, not consciously, but it's still on purpose. It's a reflection of an internal state of being. And so the reason that I don't do affirmations, and I roll it all the way back to AT&T School of Business, believe it or not, we had a program teaching affirmations way back in the 80s.
Okay.
At AT&T School of Business when it was really kind of new agey.
Right.
And so, whatever that means. And so, so what I found is that consistently, sometimes affirmations work, sometimes they don't. And so if you want to have a finer life, you have to make finer distinctions.
Okay.
And so I started figuring out what makes them work and what doesn't. Well, the reason they don't work in many cases is because I'm affirming something that I don't believe is true. You know, I am healthy, happy, and whole. No, you're not.
Right.
You know, the voice inside. No,
Yeah.
you're not. You know, who are you fooling?
Yeah.
No, I'm healthy, happy, and whole. No. You know, I'm rich and abundant. No, you're broke. You're broke as shit. You know, no. So you got this conflict going on,
Right.
which creates chaos, and it's cognitive dissonance, right? Attempting to hold two conflicting ideas simultaneously in the mind is clash and chaos. So how can you make it more powerful? Well, beyond semantics, look at the word proclamation and roll back history and think about who put out, I'll ask you, who put out proclamations?
Abraham Lincoln, kings, high priests. I'm trying to think. But presidents, kings, high priests, holy people, people in power, right?
You're right. So second question, absolutely correct. Second question, when a king or a sovereign put out a proclamation, was it negotiable?
No, it was not.
It was not.
It was law.
It was law. It was law. And so if and when you can get into the vibration, for lack of a better term, you know, and this is scientific, so it's not just, spiritual, whatever, woo-woo. This is real. Everything vibrates, including this table. If you can get into the vibration of I'm putting out a proclamation, it's law in your words, then automatically something begins to shift. Secondly, when you do it out loud, then it puts literally that vibratory essence into the plenum, the 0 point field, the vacuum, whatever term you want to use, and it starts to, that vibration is out there, literally, scientifically, and it can then start to coagulate if it's repeated, and then it will begin to attract and create, according to the law of vibration and attraction, those things that you're proclaiming. And it's really important to say them out loud because, again, go back in the traditions in the book of Genesis when they talk about how God created it, which I'm not here to challenge anyone's beliefs, but if you talk to a Hasidic Jew, he or she will tell you that the Old Testament, particularly the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, are not meant to be taken literally. They're meant to be a key, a system, a metaphor for how creation happens.
Okay.
And so, in the book of Genesis, it says God said, all was dark and void,
All right.
and God said,
Let there be light.
let there be light. All right, now fast forward to the New Testament, the book of John, and it says, in the beginning was the
Light.
Word.
Oh, the Word. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Right. And the Word was God. And the Word became flesh. Now, many traditional Christians have been trained that that was talking about the prophet, the Christ, and maybe it was, but on a deeper level, it's giving you a strategy. In the beginning was the Word. When you say something, then that literally puts a vibratory frequency into the vacuum, and it can be eradicated if you say something else. And that's one of the problems too, is a lot of people are all over the board.
Right.
They say this and then they say that, and then they say this and they say that, and it never starts to coagulate. But deep topic, hopefully I've answered it to some degree.
Well, okay, so let me follow-up question. So using your term, proclamation, are people, let's say, proclamating all the time, for lack of better terms?
All the time.
All the time. So again, the example that you gave, I'm healthy, happy, and whole, right? So if a person wants to be healthy, happy, and whole, and they want to use the proclamation system that you're talking about, how would they do that in a way that wouldn't be conflicting, right? How do you put that together?
Well, you use not only the verbalization of it,
Okay.
you do it congruently, and one of the best ways to do that is while moving the body, because the body has a frequency as well. And so, a powerful way to do proclamations is, if you get on the treadmill at the gym, or you're riding, a bike around town or whatever, or you're working out or just walking around. I mean, I do first thing, I get up at 3 a.m. every day.
3 a.m.
3 a.m.
Man, see, I'm bragging getting up at 4 a.m. So. All right.
There's a lot of people bragging about 5 a.m. I'm like, man, you're a slacker. But I get up at 3 a.m. I used to get up at 4. And I backed it up probably a couple months ago because I wanted to add a few more practices to what I call my prime objective.
Okay.
And my prime objective is my morning routine that takes care of me. And I recognize that when I take the time to take care of me, the rest of my day gives me the opportunity to take care of you, to take care of the people that I serve, to do great work for others. And the other thing is, the way you start your day says a lot about how you will finish, period.
Right.
In the traditions, they say the hours between 4 and 6, so you're in there, are God's time.
Okay.
Now, obviously, it's all God's time.
Right.
But why do they say that? Well, because the activity in the vacuum or the 0-point field is not as chaotic.
Right.
Because most people aren't going to crawl out of their bed at that hour, right?
Right.
So the activity's not as chaotic. It's quieter, and most people's spouse or mate sure as hell isn't going to get up, and
Right.
the kids aren't going to get up.
Right.
So you have that time. And in many of the spiritual traditions too, they say that's the best time to pray. It's the best time to meditate, and proclamations are a form of prayer.
Sure.
So that's how I begin my day. When the alarm goes off at 3 a.m., I sit up on the edge of the bed. I drink an 8-ounce glass of lemon water to rehydrate the body because you get dehydrated overnight.
Right.
And also that lemon water helps cleanse the liver.
Okay.
So I do that, and while I'm sitting there and I drink the water, I start automatically to say my proclamations.
Share, if you don't mind, share one of your proclamations with us.
All the power that ever was or will be is here right now.
Oh, I like that.
It's true.
I like that.
It's true. I pulled that from one of the esoteric traditions, and yet quantum physics now proves to us that every proton in every atom of every cell in your body has the density and the energy of the entire universe.
Wow.
That's mind-boggling.
That is.
It's mind-boggling, and they've proven it now mathematically, so you can't argue with it. And so that's the first thing that I say to myself in the morning. I have a whole lengthy proclamation process, and I do it quietly so I don't wake up my mate, because that's not a good thing. And then once I get out of the bathroom, and but I'm doing it while I'm brushing my teeth, and I'm thinking these things because I want to direct my focus immediately, because if you don't take control of your focus, it's going to take control of you.
Right.
Oh, and another thing is I won't look at my phone.
I was going to mention that. I think one of the worst things that people do is they look at their phone. Oh.
It's seductive.
Yeah. Oh, look, somebody liked me on Snapchat or, Instagram or whatever, or somebody didn't like me, or somebody said something, or maybe you got that email that starts the chaos because the client's unhappy, or, whatever it is. I think the phone, with all its great capability, it's a giant mind suck. I would never look at my phone so early in the morning, unless you just want to have a bad day.
Exactly. I mean, right up there with watching the news.
Right.
I mean, why would you do that?
Right.
Ever. But nonetheless, I won't look at my phone for 3.5 hours. I'm up for 3.5 hours before I ever check an email or look at my phone. And that's intentional.
Sure.
It hasn't always been that way. But here's a fact, the phone is a drug. What we now know psychologically is that we get this dopamine hit.
Right.
From, I got some likes.
Yeah.
Oh, I got some shares. Oh, wow, or I didn't get anything.
I didn't get any.
Research at universities prove that Facebook, sorry guys, creates more depression than it does happiness, because
Sure.
we get in this competitive comparison mindset. And here's the fact, guys. If you think Facebook is real, think again.
Right.
Because you don't see families fighting on Facebook.
Right.
You don't see, the chaos on Facebook. What you see are the perfect vacations and the cars and the jets and all. And you look at it, you're like, God, why
Right.
isn't my life that good?
Right.
So I don't look at my phone, and it's addictive. We get this dopamine spike. And so if you're the person who's sitting at dinner with another person and you're on your phone versus being with them, you're an addict.
Right.
You're an addict, and this is rampant, as you well know.
Well, and what's amazing to me is my wife and I will go to a restaurant and we'll see, a young couple, and they're both on their phone.
Yeah.
They're at dinner and they're both on their phone. It's like,
What's the point?
What's the point? To me, it's very disrespectful. Now, if you're both on one phone and you're sharing a video, or you're part of a
Right.
conversation, you're FaceTiming somebody that you're both associated, that's different. I'm talking about you're having two separate interactions. You're completely separated from the person you're at dinner with. What is the point?
You're really not alive.
Right.
You're an automaton. Because all the traditions, particularly the Eastern traditions, maintain that life exists in the present. It exists in this moment. I
Right.
mean, right now, I'm totally focused on this conversation with you.
Right.
And that's how it should be over dinner. That's how
Yes.
it should be everywhere. But it's getting worse and worse and worse. And what we also know, I saw a gentleman who's got a pretty big following on social media, whose name will be anonymous, but you would know who I was talking about if I told you. Just yesterday, going, oh, I've been at, with his phone, I've been at this great mastermind, and I'm really having a great time, and now I get to enjoy this pool. Look at this pool. You're not enjoying the pool. You're not enjoying the pool. You're not even there.
Right.
You're not even here. You're there.
Right.
You're looking for
You're
the responses.
Yeah. You're still trying to impress them. You're still trying to please them. You're hoping that you're going to get a couple hundred likes and
follows. I mean,
yeah.
And so consequently, more and more and more, we're not really having experiences because we're not present.
Right.
We're present with someone who's clear across the globe, hoping that they'll like our experience that we're not even having. Right?
Yeah.
So it's important. It's important to pay attention to these things. One of my mentors, I've had 6 major mentors in my life,
Okay.
coaches and mentors, and they've been invaluable. And one of them said to me years ago, James, for everything in life, you must pay attention.
Ooh.
And to the degree you do not pay attention, you pay with pain. And he was absolutely correct. Because that couple, is it going to be a surprise to them when pretty soon they realize, I haven't even known this person, I haven't even been with this person for years, so why am I here?
Right.
And one of them goes, hey, I think I'm out. Because we've been out for a long, long time.
Right.
It's really unfortunate.
It's unbelievable to me that we have created more and more and more ways to communicate, but we are connecting less and less and less. I have an Alexa device at home, and a couple of weeks, maybe a couple months after I got it, I got this message from Amazon saying, hey, you can communicate with your Alexa to somebody else who has an Alexa. I'm just like, and first of all, I have to admit, I did try it because I thought, okay, let's see how it works. So we have one downstairs and we have one upstairs. So I'm playing with my
yeah. Talk about transparency.
Yeah. I want to be transparent. So I have my girls upstairs, and we're trying to communicate. But first of all, it reminded me of trying to get an old drive-through order back in the day when you drive up and it's like, it sounded
Right.
like that. It was horrible. And I thought, leave it to mankind to create another way to communicate that we really just
Get
don't
your
need.
lazy butt off the chair, and walk up the stairs, and talk.
Yeah. Or it's just, again, we have found so many ways to communicate, and yet we're so totally, completely alone, and as you said, depressed and disconnected. We see it all the time.
1 out of 6 people in America And I don't know the global studies, but I'm going to suggest that they're probably fairly similar. 1 out of 6 people in America is totally addicted to an antidepressant, some
Wow.
kind of psychological drug. 1 out of 13 people in America is abusing alcohol. And that starts, Bert, sadly, at the age of 14 years old.
Sure, I believe
Abusing alcohol.
Sure.
Every 20 minutes in our country, in our world, someone commits suicide. Every 20 minutes. And the worst news is, for everyone who is, quote, successful,
Right.
put that in quotes,
Right, right.
of taking their own life, 40 others attempt and don't succeed. So that's where I'm going back to saying we need leadership, because we're not focusing on the right things. We're really not. And unless and until we do, it's only going to accelerate, and it's only going to get worse.
Sure.
And, Daniel Goleman's work, which you might be familiar with on emotional intelligence, proves that emotional intelligence is far more predictive for life and business success than intellectual intelligence ever will be. And yet, most people, and particularly the millennials, I'm sorry guys, I'm just reporting the facts, have low levels of emotional intelligence. It's not just the millennials. I mean, you probably know someone who's a business giant, but they're emotionally a child.
Right. And just to clarify this, you mean that they'll throw a tantrum?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they sometimes are disrespectful to others. They call names, things of that nature. It impresses me so much when that person can reach such a level of success, and you're like, how is that possible? But
Well,
I guess when you pay them,
it's a reflection of our culture and
Sure.
the things that we value. It's the things that we value. We don't really have a high value for emotional intelligence. I mean, think about
We don't. You're right.
Think about it, your school system, which has failed us all miserably. It really has.
Right.
I mean, the traditional school system hasn't changed much since we were trained to go to work in factories.
right.
Since the agrarian age. And yet, technology has accelerated like this. And so now we've got a whole new group of young adults who have a high TQ, they call it, technological intelligence, but their EQ, emotional intelligence, is almost non-existent.
Right. Look how people have now chosen to date. It's all by app, right? I talk to friends of mine who are single, and I want to say 80% of their, quote, dating, startup, dating, whatever you want to call it, rapport building, is texting,
Right.
which is, to me, is how can you really get to know anybody that way? And then, if you use, it was funny, somebody was telling me that they accidentally use caps. And
Now you're yelling.
Now you're yelling. And I just thought, man, I
And
said,
it was just caps lock is
Yeah,
on, and
yeah.
I didn't know it.
I didn't know
Right? But you're absolutely correct. And there's studies from UCSD that talk to us about communication. And 55% of the communication that you and I have is conveyed through our physiology or our body language.
right,
55%. Well, take that out with text and email,
right,
right? 38% is conveyed through tone. Well, take that out with text and email,
right,
which leaves 7% with words, and that's what we got.
right,
And so I was talking recently about these very issues with a group of people, and there was a millennial, and by the way, I'm not a millennial basher. I firmly believe that the millennials have the potential to be the greatest leaders that this world has ever known. The potential.
Right.
And they're going to have to make some shifts and wake up to some of these things we're talking about. But there was a millennial in the audience, and I was saying, 55% is conveyed through body language. And he said, in all seriousness, he goes, "Oh, but we have emoticons." I'm like,
yeah, that's the same.
emoticons are not body language. I'm sorry, they're just not. But that's the mindset, and it all goes back to values. It's
Right.
the reason your friends are all finding dates on these apps. It's time efficiency.
Sure.
And I'm all for time efficiency, but I'm also about effectiveness.
Yeah.
And they're very close cousins, but they're different. Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. And so when you marry the two, you do the right things and you then do them right, then you've got a chance to really lead your life and your business.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's amazing to me. Again, we have found so many different ways to communicate, but yet we're getting further and further apart. Jim Gaffigan, who's one of my favorite comedians, I don't know if you ever watch, he's hysterical. And he's talking about, when you go to a fast food restaurant, you don't even have to even talk anymore. You just say, I need a number one or number two or whatever the meal is or whatever. And he says, pretty soon we'll just walk in there and grunt. Okay, I'll supersize it. And so I just thought that was, that's where we're going. We're devolving into primitive communication.
We really are. And, typing is going to become obsolete. Everyone's going to have good thumbs. I got good thumbs. I'm not anti-technology.
No.
I mean, technology is brilliant. I'm not anti-social media. Social media is a great way to market and connect with new people. What I am pro, though, is using these things wisely.
Right. Effectively.
Effectively.
Right, right. Absolutely. And I tell you what's interesting to me, and like, again, I have two teenage daughters who, by the way, turned 18 today. Happy birthday.
Nice.
And I always like to tell them, I used to have hair till they turned 13. After that, it just started falling out and clumped.
Yeah, I don't have kids, that's why I still have hair.
That's why you still have hair.
I do have a lot more gray than I did. If you saw me in The Secret, yeah, it's pretty stressful.
Yeah. So my girls, like most people in their age group, can sit there and, man, you can hear them click, click, click. I mean, it's just fast and furious. I'm going, why don't you just talk into it? Because you can talk and text. It spells it out for you. You can add commas and question marks. And no, they just like to do this, which I find that amazing.
Or why don't you just hit call?
Oh, forget that.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's too much trouble.
So I'm not going to mention any names. I'll just say that he is in this vicinity of ours. But he received, I kid you not, it was like a 20-page text message. And the person who sent that text message says, hey, I know you don't like to receive, really long text messages. And it just kept going, and kept going. I mean, I kid you not, it was like 20 or 25 pages or, whatever those little blocks of messages are. It just kept going. And that's when you pick up the phone. Because if you have that much to say, pick up the phone. That's what it's for, right?
Yeah,
Effectiveness. Right. All right. I want to talk about law of attraction, which is obviously one of the things that puts you on the map. You mentioned The Secret, law of attraction. And, James, I sit at home and I'm trying to attract my life, but it's not showing up. I'm not getting the bike. I'm not getting my relationships. I'm not getting the millions of dollars. What am I doing wrong?
Let me let you in on the secret.
The secret.
You ain't going to get it that way. Let's remember that 60% of the word attraction is action. It's action.
Oh man, I still got to work for it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Because if you won't act on it, you don't believe it.
Right.
You can tell me all day long what you believe and what you're going to create, but if you won't take action on it, then you're just fooling yourself. You're not fooling me.
Right.
I'm not buying it. So the law of attraction is a lot more complicated than what the movie The Secret portrayed.
Right.
And I have utmost respect for the movie because it really catapulted me into some arenas where I'd never been before, and I've had an opportunity to touch a lot of people and to serve a lot more people. And that being said, it's a lot more complicated.
Sure.
And the law of attraction is actually not a law, not a scientific law. It's a subset of the law of vibration, which we mentioned earlier. The law of vibration says everything is a frequency or a vibration. You put this under a high-powered microscope, it's not solid. Right, it's a mass of molecules and a high rate of vibration, and at this level in the third dimension, we think it's solid because that's the only sensory acuity we have.
Right.
So does that mean the law of attraction doesn't work? No, it does work. It doesn't mean that at all, and it's a little more complicated. So I don't know how much time you want to spend on this because this could be a whole interview in of itself, but let me just say as quickly and concisely as possible that like attracts like is partially true. Now, we say like attracts like, and that's the law of attraction. Okay, well, if that were true, then every single one of us would be gay,
Right.
right?
Right. Tracks.
So how do you reconcile that one? And what we know is that at the quantum level of existence, which is the foundation of everything in the third dimension, there's a positron which has a positive charge, there's an electron which has a negative charge, and the two always coexist. You will never find one without the other. That's called the law of polarity or duality. And they attract each other. They're not the same. They're different. The positive and the negative. I mean, take this principle and apply it to your car battery. It has two poles,
Right.
a positive and negative. So go out and go, I only want positive things in my life. Pull off the negative, and how easily are you going to start your car?
You're not.
You're not.
Right.
In fact, if we understand it correctly, negative is a bad term because we say it's bad.
Right. Right.
You know, I mean, we could call it the active and receptive, and then maybe it's a little bit more palatable. But if you understand how physics work, it's actually the, quote, negative pole or the receptive pole that manifests the starting of your car.
So without that negative, you would not be able to start your car.
That's correct. Every quarter, I've ever seen has both the heads and the tails.
Right.
A lot of people want to collect all the quarters in the world, metaphorically, but they only want the heads.
Right.
They don't want the tails. Well, good luck.
Right. Okay. So let's apply this to a real world situation. Because so I'll play a little devil's advocate with you. Likes attract like. Like attracts like. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that we have to be gay, but maybe because we have the same things in common and we both work out and we both, I don't know, do all this other stuff, we're going to hang out together, we're going to be best buds, we like the same video games, whatever, right? So it doesn't have to be any more than a platonic relationship, right? But we're getting along because we have so much in like. If you were, let's say that you and I are hanging out together and, man, whatever you say hits me like a ton of bricks, I just don't like it, right? Or vice versa. What I'm saying is completely like, this guy's off his rocker, I don't like his attitude, I don't like what he says. So the relationship's not going to go anyplace, right?
Right.
So you have to have a certain level of like, but if I understand what you're saying, without the negative, we're not going to get anywhere. I mean, in other words, we can't go through life trying to avoid the negative things in life.
Correct.
We have to build on those, quote, negative things in life. And as you said, negative is the terms a lot of people use. Maybe it shouldn't be used negative. Maybe, hey, my life is easy, but now I'm going through a hard spell. Maybe that's a little bit more palatable, as you said, right? Because we all know that when life gets a little bit harder and we challenge ourselves to deal with that and overcome that, at the end of that, we're better.
We get better.
Right.
We grow the most in the crucible of challenge.
The crucible of challenge, I like that.
Period.
Yeah.
We don't grow the most drinking fine wine and smelling sweet perfume.
Right.
Now, I like fine wine and sweet perfume as much as the next person, but that's not when we grow the most.
Right.
We grow the most when we're butting up against our greatest challenges. And there's research by my friend Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote the book Flow, I don't know if you're familiar, that proves we're the happiest and most fulfilled when we're going after big challenges. And this is massive research with over 150 million people around the world. We are the most unfulfilled and least happy when things are easy.
Sure.
Now, we think we want easy, but we really don't. So, in answer to your question, there's two ways I can go with this, and I want to be respectful of our time. But I can talk about the 4 planes of existence.
Okay.
And or I could talk about intention and anti-intention.
Let's go with that one.
Okay. So I wrote about this in my last book, Harmonic Wealth.
Okay.
And it's a concept that I call intention and anti-intention. Because of the law of polarity, I just described it to you, positron, electron. You will never find a positive without a negative charge. You won't. It doesn't exist in this universe because we live in a dualistic universe. Every up has a down, every in has an out, every right has a left, and so forth. And so, consequently, every time I set an intention for my life and business, that automatically manifests what I call an anti-intention. So, and when I embrace the full spectrum, then I can live happy and fulfilled because I'm not living in illusion.
Right.
And so this is how it practically is used. You know, I'll give you an example. When the secret was at its zenith, right? I couldn't go through an airport. I couldn't get to my plane. Oh my God, you're James Arthur Ray. Can I take a picture? Can I get your autograph? Well, I'm kind of late for the plane. You know, but if you say that, then they think you're a jerk. So
Right.
you have to kind of. I mean, it wasn't great.
Right.
You know, I'm running late. I got to get to my plane. Or I'd be in the gym getting my morning workout, which is part of my going back to my morning routine, my prime directive I talked about earlier.
Right.
Every day, morning workout. Every day. And so, you know, I had a couple of minutes before I had to get, you know, maybe an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before I had to get to the Bert Martinez show. And so I got to jam in there and get it done and get out and get home and eat and get a shower and get on the road and get there. And so back at the zenith of the secret, people would go, oh, James Arthur Ray, you know, I know this is your personal time and I don't want to bother you, but I got one quick question, right? And I'd be like, okay, you know, I mean, what do you say?
Right.
You know, you're either a jerk or you're grateful. And so that, you know, here's the intention. I want to have a global impact. That's the intention.
Right.
Okay, what's the anti-intention? Well, you're going to have less personal time. You're going to be encroached upon. Your boundaries are going to be walked all over. And when you can define those in advance, what I'm going to suggest to you is the true leader and the true master embraces both pain and pleasure in the pursuit of purpose. And when you embrace both sides of the quarter, both sides of the coin, then your magnetism increases. Because go back to the car battery. Go back to the battery that you put in the mouse, you know, at your desk. If it doesn't have a positive and negative pole, there's no current that's going to flow. And so if you're only looking at the positive, which a lot of traditions tell us to do,
Right.
which is really uneducated, with all due respect. It's an illusion, with all due respect, because you've got to look at the full spectrum. With every up, there comes a down. To pursue your greatness in any area means you have to not be great in another area. Everything has a price. There's always a price for the prize. And
Right.
so when you look at this intention, anti-intention in advance, then it allows you to go, oh, okay, they're interrupting me in the gym, they're stopping me in the airport, I'm maybe going to miss my flight. Wow, that means I'm getting what I asked for.
Right.
I mean, how many times have we seen these celebrities who punch the paparazzi? Like, okay, wait a minute, bud. You know, who created this
Right.
celebrity?
Right.
Isn't that what you asked for? So
Yeah.
count the cost before you begin the journey.
Yeah. And not to mention, when you punch the paparazzi, it makes them even, you know, you attract them even more, right? I mean,
Correct.
you're causing that chaos. So I want to talk about the fastest way to go from where you're at to where you want to be is getting out of that comfort zone.
Correct.
Busting through your fear, overcoming your own limitations. How do you do that?
It's a lot of hard work. It really is. And anyone who tells you differently is really not being honest. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of romantics out there, and you can make a lot of money in the romantic market. You really can. You know, to the idealism and romanticism, 3 simple steps to multiple millions, you know,
Right.
download this, download that. And I can't go there. You know, I really want people to succeed like your show does, and I want to be straight up and honest, because that's the only way we're going to get there.
Right.
It takes a lot of hard work. It's the most difficult work you ever do. And as we discussed a few moments ago, my 2-day immersion is called Mental Mastery and Power.
Okay.
What physics now tells us, and this is mind-boggling, because science is way sexier than science fiction in today's world.
I like that. Okay.
It really is. Max Planck, the father of quantum physics,
Okay.
says mind is the matrix of all matter.
Mind is the matrix of all matter.
Matrix meaning foundation.
Okay.
Of all matter. He said behind every appearance of a physical thing, there is a force, and we have to assume that force is conscious. That'll blow your mind. This
Yeah.
is not a spiritual teacher or a personal development guru. This is the father of quantum physics. And so my 2-day immersion, Mental Mastery and Power, is about how to take your power back by getting your mind right. going back to getting outside your comfort zone, you have to be able to literally turn fear into fuel.
Ooh, I like that.
And those that are masterful are able to turn fear into fuel. You know, I see a lot of books, fearless living. Well, excuse me, there's no such thing. You're never going to eradicate fear. And by the way, you don't want to eradicate fear. You better hope you have fear. If you're standing in the middle of the street and there's a semi-truck bearing down on you, you better hope you have fear, because fear is what's going to motor you out of the way.
Sure.
You with me?
But even going back to our earlier conversation when we were talking about how we grow from chaos, right? I mean, because there's fear in there, right?
Crucible challenge.
Crucible challenge. So just in that aspect, if you don't have consistent fear in your life, you're not growing. You're not pushing yourself. You're not doing anything worth talking about. You shouldn't be on Facebook or Instagram.
Right. And this is something that's not popular, but it's true nonetheless. I tell the clients that I work with, either one-on-one, whether an entrepreneur or a CEO of a large corporation, if it's not hard, it's definitely not great.
Right. Oh, I like that. If it's not hard, it's definitely not great.
Yeah, because it's in the struggle that potential greatness is born. And this is a principle that is cross-contextual. If you look at, you know, whether it's the butterfly wrestling from the cocoon, or the snake shedding its old tired skin, or even you coming forth from your mother's womb. Now, I don't have a conscious memory of being birthed, but I have enough evidence to suggest that it's a difficult process, right? And so you come from this cushy, nice, you know, you don't have to worry about anything. Right. You're hungry, you know, I mean, you don't have to go do anything.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you start to get pushed out through an exit that is not easy to exit, and without getting too graphic, and your head's getting squashed. I mean, it's tough.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I don't think they do this as much anymore, but back in the day, you know, earlier days, they would whack the baby on the butt to get it to take a deep breath.
Right.
Well, okay, that's your first memory. Whack! Welcome to the world.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's a struggle, and that's difficult. But boy, aren't we birthed into a new arena of unlimited opportunity, with its struggles, with its ups, with its downs. That's the law of polarity we talked about earlier too. It's all there.
Yeah.
But what an adventure that we have.
So, do you have a proclamation when you're dealing with fear? Do you have a strategy for when you're hitting fear? Because no matter what, in order for you and I to grow, sooner or later we got to challenge ourselves, and when we challenge ourselves, fear rears its ugly head, right? Mm-hmm. So, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I have several proclamations, and the one that we shared earlier, we talked about, which comes right out of the esoteric traditions. All the power that ever was or will be is here right now. And as we discussed earlier, quantum physics, through mathematical equations, now proves that to be true, that every proton in every atom, in every cell within your body, you know, you have trillions of cells in your body. Trillions.
Trillions, that's right.
And each of those cells has billions of atoms. And each of those atoms has a proton. So think about those numbers, and in one proton, in billions of atoms and trillions of cells, is the entire density and power of the entire universe. So all the power that ever was or will be is here right now. So when I face fear, which I do, then I continually proclaim that and remind myself of that. Here's another good one. From the exhaustless riches of its infinite power, love, and substance, I draw every single thing I need, both spiritual and material.
Oh, I like that. Very deep. That one's good.
Because it's exhaustless.
Yeah, I like that.
It's endless. It's infinite. And if I can get into that space that's in every single proton, in billions of atoms and trillions of cells in my body, if I can just find that space, you know, there's over $80 trillion in this world right now. And you know, I'm not the money guy, but money certainly is part of the equation.
Sure.
There's over $80 trillion in this world right now. So how hard, and it's actually more than that because it's infinite, but how hard can it be to attract your rent or to create enough value to create the life you desire and deserve? And you know, as we discussed earlier, it's not about sitting in your living room and just saying proclamations or visualizing. It's about starting to ask a question, and here's an important question. Not what can I get from this universe, but what can I give? How can I give more value and service? Because when I give more value and service, then I'm going to be remunerated correspondingly. That's how it works.
Right. And I love that because I think most people are always asking, how do I get this? How can I get that? I want to get more money. I want to get a raise. I want to do this. But when you start thinking about how can I deliver the value so I can be compensated, then you're thinking the right way. Now you're on that right vibrational pattern.
Absolutely. And if you're not being paid, remunerated, what you think you deserve, the bottom line is you're not providing enough service and value. Now there's some distinctions around service and value.
Sure.
You know, number one, the value is measured by the market.
Yes. And I want to I'm glad you brought that up. So if you are in a company and you're not being, as you said, valued, you're not getting compensated the way you think, that company is your market, it might be time to look for a different market.
It could be. It could be. Or attempt to help shift the values of the company, which is more difficult.
Yes.
Sometimes it's easier to find a different environment than to create one that you're in, because the environment, as we discussed earlier as well, another callback, your environment is more important than your heredity at this stage of the game. But, you know, why is it that we compensate athletes millions and millions and millions, and actors millions and millions and millions of dollars, and teachers make, what, 40 grand a year?
Yeah, 40, 50 grand a year.
Well, the reason, and we could say all day long it shouldn't be that way, but it is.
Right.
Because we have a higher value in our current structure, our current world, for entertainment than we do for education.
You could say that, and I think also, but when you look at, let's say, an actor who's getting millions of dollars, let's say 20 million bucks for this movie, or 25 million Tom Cruise got for his last movie, whatever. The value that he's giving out, first of all, is spread over millions of people, where, let's say, a teacher might have a more important job, but you know, the impact that they're having is also much smaller, right? Now, as you and I already talked, our education system is a piece of crap. It's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
It hasn't been updated for 100 years, or whatever it was, the industrial age, right? So, but, and I'm not trying to, you know, be controversial, but it is about dealing.
I love it.
So, but these guys are delivering more value. I mean, and you can say, oh, he's just an athlete, but wait a minute, he's not just an athlete, because, you know, that person is doing something for, you know, an intense amount of time. He might be an athlete for 10 or 15 years, and then if he doesn't have the next thing, he's going to disappear. There's a lot of great athletes that we don't hear from anymore.
And about 80 to 85% of them end up broke after they retire. I'm not minimizing athletics.
I'm not
at all.
Right.
Because there is value there. There's value in entertainment because it changes the emotional state of the entertained.
Right.
It changes the emotional state, which is a very important thing to do.
Sure.
So I'm not minimizing that. What I am suggesting, though, is that we live in a society that will pay much more money to be entertained than they will to be educated.
And I agree with that. I agree with that, because it's a quick fix.
It's a quick fix because I feel good.
I feel good, and that's what I want to do. I'm stressed out. I'm broke, or I just broke up with whoever, or I gained the weight back. Whatever my stress is, I can be entertained. I can feel better. I can not think about my mistake. Versus if I start getting educated and I start taking a hard look at myself, that's going to create more pain. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, but the quick state shift is not sustainable.
That's right.
It's just not. You know, I mean, I went and saw U2, one of my favorite bands, here at T-Mobile here in Vegas last year. Incredible show. It was packed.
Right.
It was packed, and you know, the average ticket price was like close to $1,000. And you look around the stadium and you're like, holy crap. You know, all these people will find a way to pay that. But then, you know, I talk about my mental mastery and power event, and I go, oh, you can get VIP for $12.97. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
Plus,
You
it's
know?
2 days.
It's 2 days.
Oh,
you know,
man.
and I have to work.
So, I think what happens is that people get to a point, let's call it rock bottom, where they can no longer take it. And so, entertainment is no longer going to be the thing that's going to help them. And so that's when they decide, hey, I need to have a change. I need to get to the next level. And that's when they go to your event and they pay whatever it is, $1,500, $2,000, or they go to another event. But now they're serious because they've gotten to that threshold in their life where they can no longer stand what they're doing.
Enough already.
Yeah, enough.
Yeah. 2 things. Here's what I believe, and this is from personal experience. You know my life history. You know, 5 years ago, almost 6 now, I came out of this dysfunctional vacation called prison, and I was $20 million in debt and homeless. Literally. Just 5 years ago, $20 million. You know, broke looked good from where I was. It was $20 million above me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I know rock bottom. I really do. And what I will submit to you, not from theory or from some book, but from experience, is that when you finally hit rock bottom, you have a firm foundation from which to build upon.
I agree.
Because it pulls away all the bullshit and
Yeah.
all the things that are superfluous, and you get to the core, the heart of what's really, truly valuable.
Amen, my brother.
Okay.
That is, yeah, that's it.
All right? Second thing is that this is not popular, but it's a fact nonetheless. Pain is the mother of all growth.
Yes, I agree with that.
And this is a principle in this universe. I mean, you talk about going to the gym. Go to the gym and tell your trainer, I want to get in the best shape of my life. I don't want to sweat. I don't want to breathe hard. And I don't want to
Feel pain. Yeah.
You know, I don't want to have any pain at all. No soreness. See ya,
Yeah.
right? Pain is the mother of all growth because that's what it takes. And so most people, and this is to your point, don't ever make significant change in their life. They'll dabble. We talked about the addiction to alcohol. We talked about the addiction to psychological drugs and antidepressants. They'll dabble with all these things, with entertainment. Oh, I'm going to go see U2 and make me feel up for 2 hours. You know, but then I get dropped to rock bottom again.
Right.
Because it doesn't sustain. They'll play with all these things, or they'll go to the rah-rah, you know, weekend event because, oh, it feels so good and I'm jumping up and down with you know, several thousand people and, oh my God, I'm going to change the world. Oh, I'm at home by myself. and so they'll do all these things until they reach the point where they've experienced enough pain where they say, okay, enough already. And I'm really going to have to do the work. And that's, quite frankly, when a lot of people come find me. Because as I said to you earlier, I feel my integrity is not to do all this, or even going back to The Secret, to not buy into the, oh, there's magic, you just visualize it and sit in your living room. I just can't do that because
Right.
it doesn't work and
Right.
it creates frustration and failure. So you've got to do the work, and you're probably not going to do that until you experience enough pain. When you experience enough pain, that's the impetus that's going to cause you to do something different.
So embrace the pain.
Be grateful for the pain.
Right. Right.
Now here's a fine distinction. Pain, you never escape pain.
Right.
Pain is part of life. Suffering, on the other hand, is different. Suffering is a choice. And suffering is a resistance or an attempt to avoid pain.
That's right. I like that.
You know,
Absolutely.
no one ever died from a snake bite. Snake bites, bang, oh, it hurts, pain.
Right.
What they die from is not getting the venom out soon enough.
Right.
So if you follow the metaphor, what the pain is just pain.
Right.
It's just pain. And you experience the pain and you realize it's not a signal to suffer, it's a signal to grow.
Right. Take action.
Pain is weakness leaving the body. And so it's a signal to grow. The suffering comes in where I want to resist the pain and run from the pain and hide the pain and stuff the pain. That's where suffering comes in. And suffering is a choice. You don't have to do that.
And what is so funny, because we've all heard people say this over and over again, is that once it was over, once I decided that I was going to pull the Band-Aid, or I was going to get the divorce, or I was going to, start down this path that I had avoided for so long, quit my job, whatever it is, then there's that relief. There's that, I should have done this sooner. Everybody does that. I guess it's that human nature, right? Oh, we got to resist, and that causes the suffering, as you said. Hey, since we're short on time, I do want to talk about this, and this is your mental mastery, mental mastery and power event that you do here in Vegas. Talk about this, and then we're going to talk about something else.
It's a 2-day immersion in me taking all the philosophy, all the psychology, all the quantum physics that I've studied for damn near 4 decades. And if I've been given a gift, and I say that literally, from life, from the universe, from God, I've been given this gift to take these complex things and put them into a simple and easily actionable format. And so I take all of those things, the physics, the philosophy, the biology, the psychology, and in this 2-day, I help you understand, not only understand intellectually, but experientially and through application, what we quoted Max Planck, the father of quantum physics: mind is the matrix of all matter. So if mind is the foundation of all matter, then it stands to reason if you shift your mind, you shift your results. And that's physics, right? So here's the key component, though, because it's not just about proclamations. That's powerful. It's not just about new thoughts, because what psychology tells us is that 95% of what you and I do on a daily basis is driven highly unconsciously. Now here's the rub. You cannot deal with something you're unconscious of. You follow me?
Right.
If you're not consciously
you're not aware of it,
you can't deal with it.
Right.
And so one of the things, the powerful things we do in mental mastery and power is help to bring the unconscious conscious. And when you bring it into consciousness, then you can look at it and you can pay attention to it and you can find out, oh, that's from my dad or my Uncle Freddie, or that's from my heritage, or that's from my culture, or whatever, and most of those things happen between birth and 13.
Right.
And so if I can find out where those things are coming from that are driving my behavior now at my current age and awareness, I can make better decisions, I can heal that, integrate it, and literally set myself free, take my power back, and live an entirely different life.
Yeah. And it's amazing. So what is it? Thought is the matrix? How's that? Mind is the matrix
of all matter.
Of all matter. I love that. I totally believe that. Totally believe that, because we all know that the way we think, affects the way we act, and therefore affects our results, right? You said that, I think, at the beginning of the show as well. All right, so let's talk about this, because this, kind of what we started talking about a little bit before the show and stuff, is I want to talk about some of the strategies to thrive in a very disruptive world, because that's what we have going on now. We've talked about the chaos with the phones, the inability to connect, and things of that nature. And I know that you're, again, your center, or one of your favorite topics is leadership and thriving. So I want to talk about this. Talk about some of your strategies to thrive in a disruptive.
I'll give you the 3 strategies.
Okay.
And then you can flesh out, depending upon how much time we have left, you can flesh out whichever one you'd like, or all 3, and I'll let you do that. The first strategy that is the most vitally important for every entrepreneur, every leader, and remember, we define leadership as life leadership as well as business leadership, is self-awareness.
Okay.
And we realize through mounds of research that most people in today's world have a very low level of self-awareness. Knowing who I am, knowing what my gifts are, knowing how I really feel. Most people, I ask them, how do you feel about this? And they say, well, I think. Oh, no, stop. I ask you how you feel. Thinking is not feeling. Right? And feeling is where the power is. Feeling is the vibratory essence of what motors us to action and creates things in this universe. And so self-awareness is job number one. And so many people don't get this. So many people, as we discussed earlier, in today's world, look at social media, are chasing strategies. Well, let me tell you my 3 steps, or download my swipe file, or
Right.
do this strategy, or do that strategy. But you know what? Not everybody is designed to do the same thing. If everyone was designed to do the same thing in the world, what would the world be?
Right.
It'd be
Boring.
boring.
Right.
Right? It'd be redundant. So self-awareness is number one. Number 2 is reinvention. We have to be able to reinvent ourselves. And there's mounds of research on this one as well. I mean, Forbes tells us that 50% of the payroll jobs are going to be gone in 10 years or less.
Yes.
Now, let's say they're aggressive. Let's say it's 30%. That's still a lot. A lot. And it's hard to reinvent ourselves in our 30s. It feels next to impossible in our 50s. And yet that's what we're going to have to do. What experts are telling us is that the average individual in the workplace today is going to have to reinvent him or herself at least 5 times. And reinvention is difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
And
Let me give you the third
Go
one.
ahead,
and
go
then
ahead.
and then we'll come back.
All right.
Okay. The third one is we have to develop the mental toughness, and this is a big one, and the emotional strength to thrive and be happy and fulfilled in a disruptive, chaotic world. Because the singularity is coming. I mean, every expert is telling us that point in time where AIs are, and it's already happening,
Yeah.
are going to be as smart as human beings, and then pretty soon they're going to be smarter. But the one thing that you have, and I have, that an AI does not have, is the ability to feel. And so we talked about EQ, emotional intelligence, earlier. Most people have very low emotional intelligence, and when when you're having to reinvent again and again and again, and you get things just right, and then it gets wiped away. Trust me, I know. I've been there. If you don't have the fortitude and the mental toughness and the emotional strength, you're going to fold. You're going to turn to, that's why so many people are turning to the alcohol and the antidepressants and all those types of things. So those are the 3 things: self-awareness, reinvention, and the emotional strength and mental toughness to get through apparent chaos or disruption.
so, something that we were talking about earlier, and then I'll come back to these 3. We were talking about how people aren't being challenged enough, and that some people avoid challenge and avoid pain, stuff like that. What I find interesting is that we have a plethora of these games, if you will. Spartan race is huge. They're all obstacle races, hybrids, right? There's Tough Mudder. There's another one. Anyway, Vegas has a big one. Salt Lake City has another big one where they do a bunch of different obstacles. Anyway, it reminded me of the fact that here are people who are just they're starving to try to challenge themselves a little bit and get out there and physically. And they're trying to develop some of these leadership skills, some of the, the toughness, the mental awareness, because you got to be tough to push yourself through this.
Of course you do.
However, again, and they're just, I guess, for the most part, maybe scraping the surface. And I don't know. It's not like I've interviewed any of these people, but I feel that that's one of the reasons that these things have gotten so popular, is because so many people are sitting there in their box and they're going, man, I'm not doing anything that excites me or that pushes me or that challenges me. And all of a sudden, this is proposed to them. And so I did a Spartan race a couple of years ago, and I finished. It took me 2 hours. And like about 2 or 3 minutes after I finished, this 80-year-old lady finished, which, bless her heart.
At least you didn't pass you.
She didn't pass me, man. That was the point. I beat an 80-year-old lady. But it just goes to what really taught me is that we are all starving for, quote, challenges.
Right.
And I think what happens, back to some of this, like the self-awareness and the mental toughness and emotion that that a lot of us are lacking, is that we run away from, let's say, challenges at work or challenges in our relationship, real challenges, and then we are kind of pacifying ourselves with these fake challenges, right? And that's kind of what I thought about.
Either literally or vicariously,
right?
Because a lot of people actually will sit back and watch it on television.
Yes.
Let's go the gridiron. Let's go watch these football players smash each other up, or let's go watch MMA. And so it's this vicarious projection of this part of ourselves, which I call the warrior,
Yeah.
which is a part of ourselves. I believe every leader has to be a warrior, a scholar, and a sage. And that's a whole nother conversation. But the warrior part of us is so suppressed that we get it vicariously. Some of us do it literally.
Yeah.
But we can bring that. The greatest challenge and the greatest arena, if you want to be a gladiator, is to get into business. I mean, because entrepreneurship is for gladiators.
Yeah, it is, man.
And for warriors, it really is, because it's an everyday challenge.
It's an everyday challenge. You're in the trenches. All right, so let's talk about self-awareness. What I love about this is, again, we've talked about social media, how many people are depressed. Their life is in shambles because they're comparing themselves to this fake stuff on social media, which clearly shows that they're not aware of who they are. They're not aware of their value. And so they compare themselves. I've talked about my twin daughters. My twin daughters, I don't say this as their father, they are aesthetically pleasing. They are gorgeous girls.
You can say that as your father.
Yeah, I'm
proud papa.
Yeah. But I'm saying, they are model. I'm saying that they are aesthetic as to the world says they are, right? And I'm an overprotective father. Just a quick little side story here. So I get this knock at the door one day, or at our door, and I open it up, and there's 5 boys. Can the twins come out? Hell no.
And they're driving a van.
Well, they weren't driving at all, thank goodness. But then my wife says, "You can't be rude to the boys in the neighborhood." Yes, I can.
Yeah, I can. I'm the dad. I can do whatever the hell I want.
That's right. I'm self-aware. I'm the father. But it's interesting. There are so many kids, and my girls are a part of this. They're not aware, and no matter how much, as their father, I tell them, this is your value. This is what you can do. This is what you can achieve. Doesn't mean anything. I cannot compete with social media, and I think that especially girls, because they have a different language internally, the way they process things compared to boys. A lot of boys are still focused on athletics, which I think is a great way to kind of build some confidence. But this thing about self-awareness is killing us, or our lack of self-awareness is killing us.
It is. It really is. And it's not just girls or not just boys. It's adults.
Yes.
I mean, very, very few people, and you see this is an epidemic, on social media. Become a professional speaker, right? Download this swipe file. Well, with all due respect, I love you, and you can't even put an intelligible sentence together, all right? So that's not your gift.
Yeah.
Become an internet entrepreneur, whatever the hell that means, because any real entrepreneur that I know is just an entrepreneur.
Right.
They use the internet as one of their facets, but
Right.
they're an entrepreneur.
Right.
Make a quick buck, or do this or do that. Get into real estate. I remember meeting a young lady years ago who wanted to get into real estate, and she didn't like interacting with people. So I'm like, really? But see, society encourages that certain things are sexy, cool, or you can make a lot of money out of it.
Right. They're prestigious. You should do this.
Right. And so what I talk about and work with with my one-on-one clients, as well as in my events, is a concept I call beginning at the beginning. I have a conviction that we're all hardwired to be great. I believe that you are unique and that you have gifts that I don't have. I believe there's a special place in this universe for you that I or no one else can fill. And if you don't fulfill that, then there's a void in the universal plan. You are not redundant. You are you, and there's only one you. And so begin at the beginning is what I do is I help people go all the way back to their earliest childhood and start to ask yourself, what have I naturally been attracted to? What have I naturally been good at? What am I willing to do even if I don't get paid? Those kinds of things, because I find consistently, and I'm sure you do too, is that people are doing things because they think they can make a lot of money.
Yes.
And so consequently they're miserable because they're not making a lot of money. If you do something for the joy of the doing, then you may or may not make a lot of money, but you've got the fulfillment, and that's what it's all about. And ironically, and yet not so, is that when you're joyous and fulfilled and happy, you have a greater opportunity to make money. There was research done of the highest achievers on the planet, and what they found is that these individuals went after things that made them happy. You know, do you know who Sheldon Adelson is? He's one of the
No, I
richest
don't.
men in the world.
Okay.
He owns most of Vegas.
Okay.
Him and Steve Wynn.
Okay,
Right?
right.
And a lot of people don't know who he is because he doesn't need to be in the spotlight.
Right.
But he's worth 3 times more than Donald Trump, Richard Branson, and Mark Cuban combined.
Wow.
Okay? So I had dinner with him a couple years ago when I judged the Miss America. And I sat right next to him and I said, Sheldon, you know, what's the secret to your success? And he set his fork down. He was eating a steak. He set his fork down. He turned and looked me right in the eye and he said, James, find something that you love. That's point number 1. That's point number 1. Point number 2, become really, really good at it. 3, work really hard. He picked his fork up, he cut another piece of steak and went back to his dinner. Not once in that conversation did he say, decide where you can make a lot of money.
Right.
And these billionaires, multi-billionaires, are telling us again and again and again and again and again, and yet we're not listening. And
Because
so,
it's not sexy.
It's not sexy. But
It's hard work too.
It's hard work. But it is, I say you work hard, but it's hardly work.
Right.
Because when you're doing what you love, it's work. And yeah, I get tired and yeah, I get frustrated and I'm a human and I have all the range of emotions. But it's what I love to do.
Yeah.
You know, and so
Yeah.
consequently it's not as hard as living someone else's purpose.
You know a gentleman named Michael Buffer?
I don't.
Okay. When I tell you what he does or what he's famous for, you're going to go, oh yeah, that guy. So he's famous for 5 words. Let's get ready to rumble. Okay, yeah, let's get ready to rumble. And so he's on the show, right? And so
You interviewed him?
yeah. And so
Did he do it?
yeah, but fascinating
What a
story.
voice, right?
Yeah. And so prior to him doing that, he had been a model and a car salesman, all this other stuff. And so, make a long story short, here's a guy who, prior to him, hundreds, if not thousands of announcers came before him. And he took this thing and he thought about, man, I really like doing this, but I want to serve. That's what he said. I want to engage my audience. He was thinking about how can I get my audience engaged, because he says when I started, people would, you had this long introduction. So you had to introduce the commissioner and all the judges and blah, blah, blah. And by the time you got to the main event, people were already asleep. So anyway, 5 words, almost $500 million in value. He's in the latest movie, Dumbo. He's been in a couple of Rocky movies. 5 words, he's in the spotlight, barely 2 minutes. Nobody really knows his name, but they know that tagline. My point being to this is that he was passionate. He fell in love with trying to do that job the best he could. And so you don't have to be well known, like you mentioned Sheldon. You don't have to be necessarily a celebrity, but if you, like you said, you find something that you love to do and you do it really well, things happen. Money will come to you, or other things. Opportunities.
Because you're providing value.
Value.
It goes back to what we said earlier. How can I serve?
Right.
Service is the rent we pay for the privilege of life.
I like that, yeah.
It's the rent we pay. And if you're not providing service and value, then you're not fulfilling your purpose for being here. Period,
That's it.
end of sentence. If you're talking about what can I get from life versus what can I give, then you might get a little bit, but it's not going to be the same. You're not going to get the fulfillment and the happiness that you're really going after. And going back to that study of the highest achievers, those who said they went after something that was happy, they achieved and they were still happy. Those who went after money and materialism, they may have gotten it, but they weren't happy.
Right. And you know that from experience, in the sense that you've coached, you've mentored some wealthy people.
I have.
Millionaires who have an unbelievable lifestyle, but they were completely unhappy.
Miserable.
So
the only people who worry more about money than the poor are the rich. Because when you have a lot of money, you have much more to lose. And so you're constantly worrying about, am I going to be able to keep it? Do I have to keep scrambling so I can have it? And maybe I need more. And by the way, I mean, there were times, as you know, Bert, I mean, when I was really blessed financially. I at one point was making $4 million a year. And I can promise you that going back to the intention and anti-intention, I never had the intention of making $4 million a year. What I had the intention of doing was to serve. And I can also promise you that my life at $4 million a year was much more hectic and much more chaotic and not even as happy as sometimes it was when I was making way less. So money is going to only amplify who you really are. And if you get it now, then you'll have it more likely then, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. All right. I want to talk about reinvention. Back in 2007, 2008, millions of people found that they had to reinvent themselves because they just lost their fortune. The real estate, no, banks, the bank debacles, right?
Right.
So, and I like what you said, that, the average person is going to have to reinvent themselves, what, 5, 10 times?
At least 5 times.
At least 5 times. And you see it. I mean, look, AI is real.
Yeah.
AI is happening. Uber is test driving a fleet of self-driving cars in Phoenix right now. So if you're working for Uber, they're already competing against you. They're looking to eliminate you.
You need to be thinking forward.
You need to be thinking forward. There is a company in Washington State it's a burger joint. I can't remember the name, but you Google burger robot, and they have their burgers made by a robot. And it flips the burgers, and it puts them on the bun, and it's amazing to watch. If you're a fry cook, you got to start looking forward, right? So, Emory.
It's not just fry cooks.
No, it's everybody.
I've got a list. I can't recite them all from memory of the top 20 jobs at risk, and here's some of the ones that might surprise you: mortgage broker,
Sure.
real estate agent,
Insurance agents.
doctors.
Yes.
It's not just Uber drivers.
No.
It's some of these high-paid professionals who think they're insulated, who think they're immunized, and none of us is immunized. And that's why, what we talked about earlier about the only thing that you and I have over an AI, they're going to trump us on intelligence. You can't be as smart as an AI. There's no way a human being can have that much data in that quick of a time.
Right.
You just can't.
Right.
And so consequently, the only thing we have over them is the ability to feel. There's no way to program an AI to feel, to have an emotive feeling. Not yet. Maybe there will be someday. But to the degree that we develop emotional intelligence and the self-awareness, then we can do the other things that we need to do to reinvent ourselves and to succeed massively. It can be a huge fear or it can be a huge opportunity.
Yeah. It's going to, no matter what, it's going to be a huge opportunity. People are going to have to do it.
There may be a lot of pain.
There's going to be a lot of pain. There always is, right? And so Emory University was the study that I read, and this is 3 years ago. And they said 47% of all jobs 3 years ago will be replaced by some kind of cognitive machine or AI.
I'll tell you a funny story. I am dealing with a particular bank right now, and I had talked to the agent there, and we'd had a couple conversations, and I kept getting this email from a female. I think the name was Linda something, and she kept saying, we have your application and blah 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 blah, and I'm like responding and going, Linda, I'm talking to Matt. You guys aren't communicating in your office. And so finally, I get with Matt, and I go, hey, Linda in your office keeps sending me these emails. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, James. Linda is a bot. And she's just programmed to follow up. And I'm sorry, I forgot to turn her off. So let me go turn her off.
That's funny, man. That is funny. You know what? We're out of time, but it has been such a wonderful experience having you.
Fun.
It
always is with you.
I appreciate that. It's been wonderful. Real quick, mental mastery and power. And people want to find out more about that, they can go to jamesray.com.
Correct.
Go there, jamesray.com. And remember, you were created to succeed.